I bought the DNA kit as a joke. It was on clearance, and honestly, I was just bored. My wife chuckled when she saw it sitting on the counter. My brother called it a midlife crisis in a box. Everyone had something witty to say, until the results came in. At first, I thought it was a glitch. A wrong match. The kind of error they put in the fine print, buried in legalese. I almost ignored it. But after a few clicks, and one late-night deep dive, I realized what I'd stumbled into wasn't a fluke. It was a secret. A big one. A name appeared. A connection I couldn't explain. And the more I traced the threads, the more everything I thought I knew about my family began to unravel. I'm talking lies that span decades. Betrayals hidden behind smiles and birthday cakes. A truth so twisted, it made me question who I really am, and who I've been calling family my whole life. They laughed at the kit. Said it was a waste of time. But they're not laughing now. Because what I found. It tore the roof off everything. And there's no going back. There's a knot in my stomach that hasn't loosened in weeks. It tightens every time the phone rings, every time I see a familiar car slow down in front of the house. I feel like I'm living in a movie, one of those psychological thrillers where the protagonist slowly realizes everyone around him is lying. Except this isn't a movie. This is my life. The name on the screen, the one that started this whole mess, was Elias Thorne. No picture, just a name and a percentage, 99.99% match. Half-brother. I stared at it for what felt like hours, the blue light of the laptop reflecting in my disbelieving eyes. Elias Thorne. The name meant nothing to me. My family is small, tight-knit. We have our share of squabbles, the usual holiday drama, but nothing like this. No long-lost relatives, no hidden branches on the family tree. My father, a quiet, dependable man, had passed away 5 years ago. My mother, bless her heart, still lives in the same house I grew up in, surrounded by photos of me and my brother, David. Where did Elias fit into this picture? The website offered a messaging service. I hesitated for days, the cursor hovering over the send button. What do you even say to a brother you never knew existed? Finally, fueled by a mixture of morbid curiosity and cheap whiskey, I typed a simple message, "Hello." The site says we're related. The reply came 2 days later. Short, cryptic. I know. That's when the real digging began. Late nights hunched over the computer, sifting through public records, genealogy forums, anything I could find. The more I learned, the more confused I became. Elias Thorne lived a few states away, a ghost in the machine, leaving barely a digital footprint. But there were whispers, fragments of information that hinted at a life lived in the shadows. A troubled childhood, a string of broken relationships, a constant sense of being on the run. Then came the photographs. I found them buried deep in an online archive, black and white images from a local newspaper. A young boy, maybe 10 years old, with the same dark eyes as my father. The same crooked smile. It was like looking at a younger version of myself. The caption under the photo read, "Elias Thorne, rescued from abandoned building." Abandoned building. The words echoed in my mind. My father had always been a pillar of the community, a respected businessman. He volunteered at the local church, coached my little league team. He was the last person I would associate with an abandoned building, let alone a child left to fend for himself. I started to question everything. The stories my father told me about his childhood, the family history I'd always accepted as gospel truth. Small inconsistencies began to surface, cracks in the foundation of my reality. A trip he'd taken, for work, that coincided with Elias's birth date. A sudden influx of cash that he'd attributed to a lucky investment. Lies. All lies. The knot in my stomach tightened. I needed to talk to my mother. She had to know something. But the thought of confronting her, of shattering her carefully constructed world, filled me with dread. What if she didn't know? What if this revelation broke her? I drove to her house the next day, the familiar route suddenly feeling alien and unsettling. The house was the same as it always had been, a cozy two-story with a rose garden out front. My mother greeted me with a warm hug, her eyes crinkling at the corners as she smiled. But I saw something else in her eyes now, a flicker of unease, a shadow of something hidden. We talked about the weather, about her book club, about anything but what was really on my mind. The air was thick with unspoken words, the silence punctuated by the ticking of the grandfather clock in the hallway. Finally, I couldn't take it anymore. "Mom," I started, my voice trembling slightly, "I need to ask you something about Dad." Her smile faltered. The color drained from her face. She knew. I could see it in her eyes. The truth was there, lurking just beneath the surface, waiting to explode. The silence stretched, each tick of the grandfather clock amplifying the tension in the room. My mother's hand trembled as she reached for her teacup, the delicate china rattling against the saucer. She took a small sip, her eyes avoiding mine. "What is it, dear?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. I took a deep breath, steeling myself for the conversation I'd been dreading. "I found something, online," I began, choosing my words carefully. "About our family." She set the teacup down, a small click that sounded deafening in the quiet room. "What did you find?" I hesitated, unsure how to broach the subject of Elias. "It's about a half-brother," I finally managed to say, the words catching in my throat. My mother's eyes widened, a mixture of fear and resignation in their depths. She didn't deny it. She didn't ask how I knew. She simply nodded, a slow, almost imperceptible movement. I hoped this day would never come," she whispered, her voice choked with emotion. The knot in my stomach twisted tighter. So it was true. Elias was real. And my mother knew. "Why didn't you tell me?" I asked, the hurt and confusion evident in my voice. Tears welled up in her eyes, blurring her vision. "It was a different time," she said, her voice trembling. "Your father, he made me promise." "Promise?" "Promise to keep his other son a secret." The words came out harsher than I intended, fueled by years of unspoken truths and hidden realities. She reached out, her hand trembling as she touched my arm. "It wasn't like that," she pleaded, her eyes searching mine. "It was complicated. He had his reasons." "Reasons?" I scoffed. What possible reason could he have had for abandoning his own child? My mother's face crumpled, the years etched into her features seeming to deepen with each passing moment. She closed her eyes, a single tear tracing a path down her wrinkled cheek. "He didn't abandon him," she whispered, her voice barely audible. He had to protect him." "Protect him? From whom? From what?" The questions swirled in my mind, a chaotic storm of doubt and disbelief. My mother opened her eyes, a flicker of something, fear? Guilt? Flashing within their depths. "Elias's mother, she wasn't stable," she said, the words halting and hesitant. "She was dangerous. Dangerous? The word hung in the air, heavy with unspoken implications. What do you mean, dangerous? I pressed, my heart pounding in my chest. My mother took a shaky breath, her gaze fixed on some distant point beyond the walls of the room. She was involved with unsavory people, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. People who would have hurt Elias if they knew he existed. So, Dad took him away? I asked, trying to piece together the fragmented narrative. My mother shook her head. He couldn't, she said, her voice laced with a mixture of sadness and regret. She wouldn't let him. She disappeared with Elias shortly after he was born. Your father searched for them for years, but he could never find them. But, the newspaper article, I said, my mind racing. It said he was rescued from an abandoned building. My mother's face paled, the blood draining from her lips. That's where she left him, she whispered, her voice choked with emotion. Your father found him a few weeks later. He wanted to bring him home, but it was too late. She had already done too much damage. Damage? What kind of damage? The questions piled up, each one more unsettling than the last. What are you talking about? I asked, my voice strained. My mother looked at me, her eyes filled with a pain I had never seen before. She abused him, she said, the words barely escaping her lips. Physically. Emotionally. He was never the same after that. My stomach churned, the knot tightening into a painful clench. The image of the young boy in the newspaper photograph, the boy with my father's eyes and crooked smile, flashed through my mind. A boy abandoned, abused, left to fend for himself in an abandoned building. My brother. Why didn't Dad tell me? I asked, the words raw with anguish. My mother reached out and took my hand, her grip surprisingly strong. He wanted to protect you, she said, her voice soft but firm. He didn't want you to know about the darkness in the world. He wanted you to have a normal childhood, a happy life. He thought it was for the best. For the best? How could keeping a secret like this ever be for the best? The lies, the deception, the years of unspoken truths, they had woven a tangled web of deceit that threatened to unravel everything I thought I knew about my family, about myself. Where is he now? I asked, my voice barely a whisper. My mother hesitated, her eyes clouding with uncertainty. I don't know, she admitted, her voice laced with regret. Your father lost contact with him a few years ago. He tried to find him, but he couldn't. I sat there, stunned, the weight of the revelation pressing down on me like a physical burden. Elias. My brother. Lost, abandoned, living in the shadows. And I had never even known he existed. There's more, my mother said, her voice barely audible. She looked at me, her eyes filled with a fear that sent a chill down my spine. Your father, he wasn't just trying to protect Elias. He was trying to protect us. Protect us? I repeated, my mind reeling. From what? My mother's voice dropped to a whisper, as if she were afraid someone might overhear. From Elias's mother, she said. She never stopped looking for him. And she blamed your father for taking him away. But Dad didn't take him, I said, confused. She didn't believe that, my mother replied, her voice trembling. She was obsessed. She swore she would get revenge. On your father. On all of us. A cold dread washed over me. Revenge? What did that even mean? What was I supposed to do with this information? This twisted, tangled mess of secrets and lies that had suddenly become my reality. The knot in my stomach tightened, a cold, hard lump of fear. This wasn't just a family secret anymore. This was something more. Something dangerous. Revenge. The word hung in the air between us, heavy and suffocating. My mind raced, trying to make sense of it all. Who was this woman? What had she done? And why, after all these years, would she still be seeking revenge? My mother, seeing the panic rising in my eyes, reached out and took my hand. "She's gone now," she said softly, her voice barely a whisper. "She died a few years ago. It was in the papers. A car accident. A car accident." It felt too convenient. Too neat. "Are you sure?" I asked, doubt creeping into my voice. My mother nodded, her eyes filled with a strange mixture of sadness and relief. "Yes, I'm sure. Your father saw the obituary. He was relieved. He thought it was finally over. But was it over?" The unease remained, a persistent hum beneath the surface of my consciousness. Something didn't feel right. The pieces of the puzzle didn't fit. Why would Elias contact me now, after all these years, if his mother was truly gone? And why did he seem so evasive? So secretive? I spent the next few days in a daze, replaying the conversation with my mother over and over in my mind. I called David, my brother, but he knew nothing. He was as shocked by the revelation as I was. We talked for hours, sharing our confusion, our anger, our grief for the father we thought we knew. Then, one evening, as I was scrolling through online forums, I stumbled across a post about a support group for victims of parental alienation. The stories were chilling, tales of manipulation, brainwashing, and emotional abuse. One story, in particular, caught my eye. It was about a woman who had convinced her son that his father was a monster, a dangerous man who wanted to hurt him. The son, believing his mother's lies, had cut off all contact with his father and spent years living in fear. The similarities to Elias's situation were striking. Could it be possible? Could Elias's mother have poisoned his mind against our father? Could she have convinced him that our father was the enemy? Driven by a desperate need for answers, I contacted Elias again. This time, I didn't hold back. I told him everything I knew, everything my mother had told me. I told him about the newspaper article, about the abandoned building, about the years our father had spent searching for him. I told him about the abuse, about the lies, about the fear. His reply came a few hours later. It was longer this time, more coherent. He admitted that his mother had told him terrible things about our father, things that he now realized were probably untrue. He said he had been living under an assumed name, constantly looking over his shoulder, afraid that his mother would find him. He said he contacted me because he wanted to know the truth, to finally understand his past. We talked for hours that night, sharing our stories, our pain, our confusion. It was like talking to a stranger, yet at the same time, it felt like talking to a part of myself I had never known existed. He told me about the hardships he had faced, the struggles he had endured. He told me about the guilt he felt for believing his mother's lies, for rejecting the father who had tried so hard to find him. And then, he told me something that made my blood run cold. He told me that his mother hadn't died in a car accident. She had been murdered. The knot in my stomach returned, tighter than ever before. Murdered? I repeated, my voice barely a whisper. By whom? There was a long pause, the silence heavy with unspoken words. Then, Elias spoke, his voice low and strained. By me. The truth hit me like a physical blow. Everything clicked into place. The evasiveness, the secrecy, the fear in his eyes. He hadn't contacted me to reconnect with family. He had contacted me because he needed help. He needed to confess. He needed absolution. He told me how he had tracked his mother down a few years ago, how he had confronted her about the lies, about the abuse, about the years of stolen childhood. He told me how she had laughed in his face, how she had taunted him, how she had told him that he was nothing, that he would always be damaged, that he would always be her son. And then, in a fit of rage, he had killed her. He had been living with the guilt ever since, haunted by the memory of what he had done. He had contacted me, his half-brother, the only family he had left, hoping that I could understand, that I could forgive him. I sat there for a long time, the weight of his confession pressing down on me. I thought about my father, about the years he had spent searching for Elias, about the pain he had endured. I thought about my mother, about the fear she had lived with, about the secrets she had kept. And I thought about Elias, about the abused child, the lost soul, the brother I had never known. In the end, I did what I had to do. I called the police. I told them everything. It was the hardest thing I've ever done, but it was the right thing. Elias was arrested, tried, and convicted of manslaughter. He received a lenient sentence, given the circumstances of his childhood and the provocation he had endured. I visited him in prison, and we talked. We talked about our father, about our family, about the future. We talked about forgiveness. I don't know if I'll ever fully forgive him for what he did, but I understand. I understand the pain he carried, the rage that consumed him. I understand the desperation that drove him to commit such a terrible act. The knot in my stomach has finally loosened. The fear is gone, replaced by a strange sense of peace. The secrets have been revealed, the lies exposed. The truth, however painful, has set us free. I am no longer living in a movie. I am living in my life, a life that is messy and complicated and imperfect, but a life that is finally, truly, my own. And in the quiet moments, when the world is still, I think of Elias, my brother, lost and found and lost again. And I whisper a prayer for him, a prayer for peace, a prayer for healing, a prayer for forgiveness. The weight of the past few weeks, the weight of a lifetime of secrets, has finally lifted. It's a strange feeling, this lightness, like I've been carrying a heavy backpack for years and finally set it down. Life, I realize, isn't a neatly packaged narrative. It's messy, full of unexpected twists and turns, of light and shadow. And sometimes, the most difficult truths are the ones that set us free. I still think about Elias often, about the life he could have had, the life that was stolen from him. I visit him whenever I can, and we talk. We talk about our father, about the future, about the possibility of healing. It's a long road, but we're walking it together, two brothers bound by a shared history, a shared pain, and a shared hope for a better tomorrow. If you found this story captivating, and you're drawn to the mysteries that lie hidden beneath the surface of everyday life, then I invite you to join our community of listeners. Subscribe to this channel for more stories like this one, stories that will keep you on the edge of your seat, stories that will make you think, stories that will touch your heart. Hit the like button if you enjoyed this narrative, and don't forget to turn on notifications so you never miss a new upload. The truth is out there, waiting to be discovered. And together, we'll uncover it, one story at a time.